Hello everybody, my name is Jenna Lozoya and I am a fourth year environmental engineering student, and today I am here with Professor Stabryla.
Hi, so my name is Lisa Stabryla. I am an assistant professor here in the Department of Civil Materials and Environmental Engineering, having been here for a full year now. And so my research falls more under the umbrella of environmental engineering, but trying to apply material science principles to come up with solutions that protect public health.
Okay, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me today. I have a couple questions for you. You've gone from studying engineering science to leading a research lab focused on antimicrobial design. What sparked your initial interest in this field?
I would say my undergrad degree was very much focused on material science. And so as I picked up different experiences that led me to really understand how we could start harnessing the power of microbes to solve some of our environmental and public health challenges, I then began to merge those two fields together. So studying materials or nanomaterials specifically, with how we could use those materials and study their interactions with microbes such that we could better design more effective antimicrobial agents. And so this work really does fall at the intersection of public health, trying to protect and prevent infectious disease spread using the role of the material.
Okay, thank you. From undergrad to postdoc, what's a pivotal moment in your career that helped define your direction?
So, when I look back, it is hard to identify one specific thing. So I might highlight two different things here, but the very first pivotal moment was doing a co-op. So this was like a 3-semester rotational program where I did basically an internship with this engineering consulting firm. And that was pivotal because it taught me a lot about what I didn't like and what I liked. And one of the projects there ended up being more open-ended research. And so from that experience, then that led me to pursue a summer experience doing research in a lab. And I will just say, I think a lot of undergrad students, myself included, come into college kind of on this like direct path. They want to go out and they think will be linear. But I think just opening yourself up to these other opportunities that you didn't consider, you might end up finding something you really enjoy more than you could ever imagine. And like when I switched to this more research laboratory-based path, I just realized that was more the path I really enjoyed being on. And I will just to expand a little further, your peers influence a lot of your learning at the undergrad level. And coming from my high school, we're all set on getting jobs, getting good paying jobs. But then with this organization I joined at the undergrad level, I surrounded myself with people who knew grad school as a career path. They were considering it, and these ideas just spread. And so that helps, inform your own decision making and other paths you consider. So I think that was also very valuable, and just getting that encouragement to consider it as a career path.
If a student walked into your office feeling unsure about where they're headed in engineering, what would be the first thing you'd say to them?
Yep, so I was given this piece of advice and it has stuck with me to this day, and I love sharing it with students. I would just say that your degree does not define you. So, I think you're eventually gonna figure out the path that you're meant to be on, even if you have to be also okay sitting in that uncertainty and ambiguity. And so, you look at me where I am in my career, I took this nonlinear, very non-traditional path to figure out what I liked. I even did an internship in toxicology, working at this forensics examiner's office. So, it's all about being okay with not knowing it right now, knowing maybe your first job isn't even gonna be your job for life. Being okay with that, moving around, learning what you like and don't like. And so I would just say, when you end up getting your degree and completing your education, that doesn't mean that you're confined to one specific career path or one field, because you never know what you're gonna end up doing. You can work on other stuff because you have other skill sets that are gonna translate anyway.
If you could design a brand new course that blends engineering with creativity, what would it be called?
So I don't know that it would be a brand new course. It would be a new course to UIC, but when I was an undergrad at Pitt, my advisor and I worked on creating this course called Design for the Environment. And that's specifically integrated design thinking as a creative pedagogy to help engineers really understand how to go through an engineering design task from the ground up. So what that means is not just being given a problem that you then work on solving, but really trying to work with stakeholders from the very beginning and identify the true need that they need solved. Whether that's observational or interviewing these stakeholders. And then that, I think, allows more creativity to be integrated into the whole engineering design process. So trying to design a course around that, creating these hands-on modules that teach that design thinking process and teach case studies that show how to use that in practice.
If you could see one innovation come to life in your field within the next decade, what would it be?
So it would be the development of these super smart sensors. So if you think about even if your tap water of your sink had a sensor on it that could detect if there were any pathogens present or what type of pathogens would be present, that you could just real time know that you have to either change out your filter or boil the water. And then same could be said for a wound dressing, something that's going to be bioresponsive. If a wound dressing, so for example, if a patient is leaving a surgery, they have an open wound, the wound dressing could monitor real time if infection is starting to develop and treat it simultaneously. So a bioresponsive wound dressing would be another innovation I would love to see happen in my lifetime.
Your lab focuses on sustainable design such as nano-enabled antimicrobial materials, and you've also done work in pathogen detection. What excites you most about working at the intersection of public health and environmental engineering?
The stuff we do in the lab, it sometimes takes time to see its translatable impact, in society. But I think just knowing that synthesizing material that could be used in healthcare, doctors could be using it as coatings on catheters or other medical devices. Patients and even other consumers could be using it in wound dressings. So understanding that it could have a direct impact on people and saving lives and preventing infectious disease and spread of disease just has a high impact. And then it also, I guess, personally relates to my own upbringing. My dad had been in and out of hospitals a lot, different surgeries he's had over the years. And I know he had contracted this life-threatening MRSA infection. And so it just does hit close to home knowing that my work could impact people from any walk of life that could be affected by infection that they obtained through surgery.
Okay, one last question for you. What's one question your research is trying to answer right now that keeps you motivated?
So the question my research is trying to answer is how to prevent bacteria from developing resistance to antibiotics or other antimicrobial agents. So, again, really investigating what the role of the material can be in how it can inhibit bacteria growth, but then also, how do I want to say this? So if bacteria are able to adapt to a new material, they're going to develop a weapon against that material so that material is no longer effective. So I'm trying to design a material that could block that adaptive response in bacteria altogether, such that the bacteria will never be able to evolve a defense against that material. And that would create more of a long-lasting antimicrobial solution that could be implemented into a wide variety of products. So clearly healthcare settings, but there's other types of applications, drinking water treatment, food preparation surfaces. So anything that requires an antimicrobial function. I guess the thing that motivates me is just trying to prevent disease and spread of disease in a new way that we don't have to keep relying on creation of new antibiotics, if that makes sense.
Interesting. As a follow-up, have you been able to create something similar, or where are you at currently in your research?
So we're definitely still bench scale proof of concept, and because these types of experiments are very time-intensive and laborious, a lot of resources involved to synthesize different nanomaterials, but also to do the testing. over long periods of time to see how bacteria evolve over time. I'm trying to now integrate machine learning and more AI aspects by working with other collaborators at UIC. And the thought there is, because this nanomaterial design space can be infinite, essentially you can develop any type of nanoparticle, with a certain, within a certain parameter of design constraints, but essentially you have an infinite number of possibilities for designs that you could synthesize. So machine learning is going to help try to narrow that down to a subset that might be more promising for antimicrobial activity. So from there, then we can pare that down to a reasonable number of experiments. So still just kind of working on even understanding mechanistically how these different nanomaterials and changing their property, how that's going to interact with bacteria. So I'm still there's a lot of fundamental research questions that are still unanswered. So, very much at the basic levels of technology readiness for the project.
Interesting. Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much for taking the time to be interviewed, and thank you everybody for watching. Definitely keep an eye out for future interviews to be posted.